Hi, in this video we'll have a look at for loop and how for loop works. And for loop is very similar to while loop, and even if you would want to, you could use only while loop or only for loop in your PHP codes or in programming codes or in your scripts when you are writing different programs, because for all programs you could use only one loop if you would wish to, because all loops are pretty much the same. Like for loop is the same as while loop, and you could execute the same things with while loop what you could execute with for loop. It depends how you put conditions together. So let's have a look at for loop, and I will show you and explain you how that, and I will show you how it is similar to while loop. As you remember, in while loop we were creating this variable somewhere outside before our loop starts. So in for loop we create this variable as a first parameter, and as you see I have written here start. So this will be just the first parameter which we will be comparing in our test. As you see here on the top I have written test is as a second parameter. And note that in for loops these parameters are separated by semicolons. They are not separated by commas or something, but they are separated by semicolons. First parameter, after first and after second parameter we have this semicolon. However, after third parameter we don't have anything. Like in programming, you never use anything after the very last parameter. Okay, so start will be some variable, and I could say variable number. Okay, and we could give some number, and as in previous video, to not confuse or to keep this very simple, I will use the same number 3. However, you understand that you can use here any number. And this was, like I said, variable which we in while loop were creating outside. However, in for loop we create it as third parameter, and we add this semicolon at the end. And then, as you remember, in while loop we had test in these brackets itself straight after keyword while, but here we write test as second parameter. That's the only difference, that you write this test as second parameter and you create this start point as a first parameter. And let's write this test. For example, let's compare this variable number. Okay, number. Okay, let's run this loop while this number is less than 5, for example. Same as we did in previous while loop. Okay, here we are saying number, run this loop while number is less than 5, until this will return true. This block of code, whatever code, for example code, here in these curly brackets, this block of code will run. If this second condition will return false, this block of code will not run. Okay, and then, as you remember, in while loop we were creating in this block of code itself, we were incrementing this start point, because loop has to finish somewhere. If there is no finish of loop, that will be infinite loop, and it could crash your code simply. So any loop, if it starts, it has to have some end point. So start point is this variable or whatever we create in first parameter, or in previous while loop we created it outside, and condition or test we create in second parameter, but third parameter is increment or decrement, and we are incrementing or decrementing this start point, so this loop ends somewhere. And like you remember, in while loop we were creating this increment and decrement somewhere in our code, like variable number would be like plus plus increment. Okay, but here what we will do with for loop, we use this increment as third parameter. Okay, so this is a third parameter here, and we don't need semicolon, and we don't need any semicolon here as well. So what is happening here is we have this number 3. Okay, and then we have this parameter which has to return true to run this block of code. If it doesn't return true, this block of code doesn't get run. So, and we are checking whether 3, which is stored in number, is less than 5. It is less than 3 is less than 5, right? So it's logical, so this will return true, and this block of code will run. And we can straight away write in here echo, for example, we would want to see number, what we have in this variable number, and it would be 3. And then we use this increment or decrement at the very end. So first we will run this variable number, and let's concatenate a break tag at the end, so each number which we display with this loop gets displayed on next line, like we did in while loop. So let's use this br tag. So at first, like I said, it will be 3, and it will not look at the very first time even at the third parameter when it will see only, it will check for first one and it will check for this condition. If this condition will return true, it will run the loop, and at the second time only it will use this increment or decrement. So first time it will see that number 3 is less than 5, and it will straight away run this block of code, and with this block of code we will display 3 on the screen, and then it will increment this number by 1. So, and it will return back to this, and it will say 4 is less than 5. And if 4 is less than 5, it again will run this block of code because this returns true, and we will display 4 on the screen and increment this number, as you see, with third parameter by 1, which will make it 5. And then it will check if 5 is less than 5, and 5 is not less than 5 because 5 is equal than 5, and it will stop running this loop at all, and it will continue after this closing curly bracket if we have any code after there. So it will display 3 and 4 on the screen, this particular loop. Let's save it and let's have a look, and if we refresh we see that 3 and 4 is displayed on the screen. And this is how for loop works. So pretty much like I explained you before, while loop is very similar to for loop, and we could write exactly the same functionality or achieve exactly the same functionality with for loop as we can achieve with while loop, because here we have first condition which is just start point, second is what we wrote actually in while loop, as you remember, in brackets itself, and third one is increment or decrement, which in while loop we wrote in this block of code itself. However, here in for loop we write it as third parameter. Okay guys, this is how for loop works in PHP, or not only in PHP but in any other programming language. It has these three parameters, where first is start point, second parameter is condition, and when it returns true this block of code runs, if it returns false it doesn't run, and third one is increment or decrement, and we can increment or decrement by how much we want. If we would, I will show you actually one more thing, how we can use assignment operators to increment if we would want to increment this particular number not by 1, but if we would want to increment it by 2. Then we could use something like plus. As you remember, we had a look at assignment operators. It was plus equal 2, and this, you know, every time would add 2 to this particular number, and this means that in this case we have this number 3. We check if 3 is less than 5 and 3 is less than 5, it would echo out this 3 on the screen, but it will increment it by 2, so it will straight away become 5, and it will check if 5 is less than 5 and 5 is not less than 5, so this loop would stop running. So in this scenario we will execute on the screen or display on the screen only number 3. So let's save it, and we can check it by going back, refresh, and you see 3 is displayed only on the screen because we incremented number by 2. And this is how you can increment or multiply by using these operators, which we as well had a look, and these are in previous videos. And now I hope that these all assignment increment decrements start making sense to you, and where we are using them in our code in programming. And this, like I mentioned before, is used in not only PHP but in all programming languages which you will ever learn. Okay guys, if you enjoyed this video or found it useful, leave a like, subscribe, share this video, and see you in my next videos.